One and into the
To the
next
next
life
life
with
with
Drew
Drew
and
and
me, Chip Chantry and
me.
Blake
Blake Wexler,
Wexler.
Chantry.
Ah. That
Okay,
just reminds me of, by the way, thank you for having us.
Yes.
That reminds me, do you remember Doogie Horner's bit that he used to do about having his own backup singers? He would love to have his own backup singers.
I only remember because that was when I discovered that Doogie has a gorgeous singing voice. Like he has a
He
fantastic
does.
singing
He
voice. Yeah.
does. Yes. Yeah.
And also is very funny on top of the
Mhm.
purpose of the joke was to be funny, but he also the singing voice really was the headliner
It
for
really
me.
does. Yeah.
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 so this is the Drew and Me podcast where we talk about music, we talk about movies, and we talk about whatever else we want to talk about. And today we're joined by Philadelphia comedians Chip Chantry and Blake Wexler.
Woo.
Blake.
I want to keep
Hi, Blake.
singing. Hi, hi,
All right.
Chip. Hi, Drew. By the way, there is when we started singing and when Drew started singing, a notification came up in Zoom saying, "Hey, are you recording music?" Happened like just that's how nice our
That's
voices are.
that's how good we sound.
That's
They
right.
think we're Drake and such.
Yeah, yes, but worse, Blake
Yeah.
and such.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
do you guys have any shows or projects that you would like to promote?
Blake.
Chip has a bit. Oh well, I guess I'll go I'll go beauty before
Ugh.
insane. Um, I have a special out called Blake Wexler Daddy Longlegs, which is on YouTube, and I'm headlining Helium at some point in December of 2024, Year of Our Lord. And I also know that Chip has a special coming out soon. I believe in August. Is that right, Chip?
August 20th,
Mm,
8/20 of 8/20/24. It's called Move Closer, and it will it will be on YouTube as well.
great name.
Yes. Thank you.
That's great. I look forward to checking those out.
They'll be there for you. So whenever you have mine's 4.5 hours long. It's a 4.5 hour special. Uh
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of
And mine is more
self-reflection.
of a recap than of Blake's special
Yeah.
than any of mine. I just sort of comment on what he does. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Talking Long Legs was the working title, and then Move Closer. You switched it to.
Yes. How are you doing, Drew? How you been?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've been good. I've been doing more comedy recently and kind of like writing new jokes. I feel like that this is kind of a good time of year to write more jokes and
Hmm.
to kind of work on that. And then yeah, so that's actually yeah, so that's been kind of fun. Yeah, like um
And, and Drew, you said it was a good time to write jokes because it's not a good time to perform them because no one is at any shows to watch you do the jokes because everybody's traveling over the summer. I don't know if you've noticed that too, but it seems like the crowds, maybe it's just the fact that I'm not a draw, but it does
I think that's
seem
it.
like,
My
yeah,
crowds have been very good, Blake.
they've been
Yours
oversold.
obviously. Yes, it's
Okay.
sellouts, adding shows. Yeah,
Oh my
I'm doing
God.
very well. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
All right. I'll
just you,
only
Blake.
speak for myself. Well, I'm not even writing jokes or performing.
Well, I will say I did a bunch of local shows this week, and
Hmm.
they were fairly well attended. And that just goes to show how well these newer comics are at promotions. Because when
Hmm.
we used to run shows in the city, no one would show up.
Correct. And I think part of that is to your point, how good they are at promo. And then
Social
also I
media,
think
yeah.
now these venues are air conditioned almost
Yes.
unilaterally. And because
Yes.
when we started, I don't even, like, by the way, we're not aging ourselves into the 80s or the 60s. Like a couple years ago, just you would walk into a room in late July and it would be like, oh, they just didn't turn, there's no air conditioning in this attic. And
Yeah.
yeah, and people would still survive and have what resembled a good time. But yeah, no,
Yes.
it's that does help. I've been overheating in a way that I'm not real willing to discuss. It's
Right.
been Yeah, it's been a heater for sure. But yeah, that's great. That's great. You've been writing a lot, Drew. That's awesome.
And Drew, where have you
Yeah,
been performing?
Hmm.
um, y- yeah, I'm actually like just kind of doing the open mics right now.
Great.
And there's so I live in the Phoenixville area. Yeah,
Oh
I live
yeah, I
in
know Phoenixville.
Yeah,
Phoenixville,
sure.
and there's an open mic there called the Boardroom, and
Hmm.
yeah, I've been doing that, and a, a really generous comedian named Dan Sherman, he runs that, and he's a really nice guy.
Oh, that's
Cool.
great.
That's great. Chip and I performed at PJ Ryan's a bunch of times, but
Yes.
we did like a little tour, I think maybe in 2016,
Somewhere around there. Yes. Yeah.
around there, and we did that was our Phoenixville stop
Yes.
on the tour, and
Yes. We did.
that
What
was a
did we
lot of fun.
do? We did Buffalo,
Hmm. Hmm.
Philadelphia, Bethlehem,
Oh yes, in
Phoenixville.
Boston.
I th-
And Boston.
and
We
Boston.
went up to Great
What did we
Scott,
do? Yes.
which was
Oh,
Rob
outside
Crane's.
of yes, the gas. The gas. Is that what it was called?
Yes, yeah, good memory. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it
I
was.
do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
But PJ
that's
Ryan's
great.
was a really cool room, and I believe it's still there, and they still do shows there sometimes. I think Chris
I think
Yeah,
so.
Kosha, yeah.
yeah, I did a show at PJ Ryan's about a year ago,
Okay.
and that was fun. They have a private room just for comedy, so it's really fun.
Yeah. They I still to this day one of my favorite weekends ever. I'm going to call it like 2011 maybe.
Hmm.
That's like a guess. You may have been around, Blake. I don't know. But I think it was Easter weekend and I think we did Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. We did like 6 shows in that basement of PJ Ryan's that holds like
Yeah.
75 people. I hosted, Gary Goldman featured, and Todd Glass headlined. So it was me, Gary Goldman, and Todd Glass for a weekend, and it was maybe my favorite weekend of my comedy career.
In a basement
In the
in
basement
Phoenixville.
at PJ Rounds. Yes.
Chip, I'm so jealous that you were even there. I was going to bring up that weekend as a cool weekend that happened that I was just aware of that occurred like in
Yeah.
history, and you
The
opened
Lost
the shows.
Weekend.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something very like special and serene about the basement there. And
Hmm.
because like at so many venues, like you have to go upstairs or like to a special room, but you're going downstairs. So
Yes.
Yeah.
y- yeah, I kind of feel that that's pretty cool. I like that.
That's
The
so
one
interesting.
place,
Yeah. Go ahead,
God,
Chip. Oh, so like that is an interesting distinction because I feel the same way you do, Drew, where and I think audiences probably do too, where if you're going upstairs, you still have the idea, instinctually of like, oh, this is a place anyone can go to. But when you go downstairs into the basement, it kind of feels like, ooh, this is like a cool thing that nobody's, like this is a cool little club that we're in. Not just a comedy club, but a cool little group, like going to
right.
see the show.
And of course, Todd Glass, when he started doing shows there, he would always set up like a green room situation. And
I believe it.
eventually he moved it into like the boiler room area. And it was this nice little thing. But the first few times I did shows there, it was just in the back. It was a back room. It was a storage room,
Hmm.
what back room of a bar in the basement. But they had chairs there for us. So we would just sit in the back and chit chat or whatever when we're waiting our turn. And it wasn't very nice, but it was fine. But just every once in a while, they just had this chute from upstairs where they would just drop beer bottles into a giant recycling bin. So you would just be sitting there having a conversation, and like 6 inches from your head, just 5 bottles of Yingling would just come crashing down and shatter in a trash can right next to you.
I want to sit at the car accident table. Can I sit at that one? Do you have, is that,
Yes.
has that
Yeah.
been reserved for the evening? That's so jarring. Or
Yes.
bottling, if in this case.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cool. So it sounds like we have very fond memories of PJ Ryan's,
Love
and
it.
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, it's still around. It's absolutely still around, and it's a really cool place. So I actually got to catch Chip's performance. He hosted the Phillies on East last weekend,
Oh, cool.
Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't
and
hear that. Yeah.
you did a voice impression there that I thought was really funny. Like it kind of sounded like Roz from Monsters Incorporated. It was like Wazowski. Oh, I'm watching you, Wazowski.
Oh
Always
yeah.
watching you.
With the big
Yeah.
glasses, right? That like
Yeah,
slug looking thing. Or I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, let me look up Roz. I
yeah.
know who you're talking about.
And I'm trying to think which joke I do that in. Do you remember the context? I'm trying to think. Oh, that's so
I
funny.
think it was like an older lady or something. Like it was like some kind of lady
Oh, was it the
giving.
diner waitress? Like the diner
Yeah, I think
waitress,
it was
like,
that
oh,
one. Yeah,
honey, yeah, yeah, yeah. What can I get you, honey? Like that. Yeah, I think maybe that's
yeah.
that's what it
Oh
was.
yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's great.
So like, what are like some favorite impressions that you guys have done before, or that you would like to try at some point?
So any impression I've ever done has never been one that is marketable or has any benefit to me or my career because it's always a very specific person. And I think the most famous person whose impression I'll do is Robert Durst, the billionaire real estate mogul who murdered at least three people and went on the run. And recently, I don't mean it want to be a downer, recently passed away, but he is was very, very it's hard not to do his voice. I think it wasn't even like an intentional impression where the way he would say, this is a grown man who murdered people, and but he sounded it so like infantile sometimes in the way that he would speak, where when he was in jail before he jail because he killed people, before he would hang up the phone he would be like, okay, bye bye, and then like would hang up the phone. And to say bye bye, like, so now my wife and I, like, whenever like we'll like leave or something or like hang up the phone, it's like, okay, bye bye, and then just like hang up, where it's just so hard not to do. And then like, like I didn't knowingly intentionally lie. Like he's just so, and it's all about something horrendous. Like the impersonation. It's not like he was some like vaudevillian actor, where it's you're tap dancing around. He was one of the history, like one of recent history's worst people. But yeah, it would be Bob Durst is mine. Chip, what's yours, Chip?
The only the only famous person I do is also serial killer. How how have we not taken this on the road?
I don't know.
It's true crime. True. It's like a 1980s like VH1 comedy on the road, but it's just true crime. We just opened for the My Favorite Murder Gals, you
Yes.
and I, and we're like, and now, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer would go a little something like this. So mine is yours is at least known, Blake, which
Oh,
I
thank you.
commend you on.
Thank
Mine
you.
is probably not known at all unless you're really deep into true crime. I mean, I'm literally going to use the phrase "my favorite murder."
Mm,
My favorite true crime story is I don't know if you guys are familiar with the John List story.
no.
Very very brief, awful story, but just mesmerizing. Um, this just very strange man. He was like an accountant, and it was in New Jersey in like 1971. He had this big, beautiful, like 19-room house, this mansion basically in New Jersey, but he couldn't afford it. But his wife like made him buy it, and she didn't know that he lost his job and like all this stuff. And his mother, this old lady, lived up on the top floor, and then it was him and his wife and his three kids. And in 1971, the kids went off to school one day, and he plotted this, and he killed his wife and then his mom, and then when the kids came home from school, he killed each one of them. And then he went on the run for 19 years. He was on the run, right? So, but he was just this very strange man. And there's more weirdness that goes with it. It's my favorite story. But there's actually, you can look up YouTube things, like they interviewed him from prison like in the 90s, and he's just this, he's these big glasses and he's just this old man, but he just talks like this and he has a very deep voice and it's very unsettling. And he's this like devoutly religious man, and he's like very Mr. Put Together, like very just, but I talk like this and he has a very deep voice like this. And he comes off as very nice. But we did this on a podcast episode that James Heskey and I used to do, where, and this is sick and this is horrifying. I should have put a little footnote. What do you call that? A warning that it's not the not the most pleasant topic. But basically,
The sound of
before
a
he,
spring.
yes, ding ding ding. He the afternoon. So see, he's already murdered like two of his kids, and before his last son, who was like 15, he went to see his high school soccer game and watched him in his soccer game, and then brought him home and then killed him at it. Like that's it. And so like he was just not a sportsman himself. So then me and James and our friend Graham Pascal, if you know him, we would just do impressions of John List at his son's soccer game, but he doesn't really understand how soccer works because it's the early 70s and he's
Yeah.
also this old strange man. So he would just be on the sideline being like, "Go ahead, John. Don't use your hands. Don't use your hands." And that's all we would say, because that's the only rule in soccer he knows. So we just be like, don't use your hands. Don't use your hands.
Every time there's a whistle, he goes, "Oh!" He just jumps.
Oh, oh, good gravy. Don't somebody use their hands. So those are our serial killer impressions.
Oh, that's great. My head
That's so
hurts.
funny that you and I both have. That's what we do is murderers. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're taking it on the road. Yeah.
This is something to explore
Yeah. Did you
briefly.
ever wonder if Jim Jones got pulled over for speeding?
Yeah, I
And then
think it
it's
would
like,
go a little something like this.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't have a serial killer one that I do, but
That's
uh,
okay.
It's okay. Most
For
people
the
do
best.
not.
Yeah.
Yes.
there's like a Jimmy Stewart one that I've kind of been working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so honey, we just go over the house and we kind of understand how things go. And no, we go out for a drive and then we kind of feel it. And then you kind of study that man and he looks kind of crooked. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes. Well done.
That's
Well done.
great. I learned who Jimmy Stewart was because I saw Dana Carvey doing an
Oh, okay.
impersonation of him. Where like
Yeah.
I think that's how so much, probably a shameful amount of any knowledge that I have whatsoever, came through like comedic references when I was a kid, where David Cross would mention Dan Quayle, or like these politicians. So like I know, not Dan Quayle, but like I know these like conservative, like
Right.
politicians from the mid 90s, which is not age appropriate or necessarily interest appropriate for me, but like I looked
Right.
them up because he would reference them. So that is funny. Yeah, you sounded like a Dana Carvey right there, Drew.
That's great.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously, Dana Carvey is probably like I've never heard an impressionist probably as good as he is. Like
Hmm.
he's like incredibly talented.
There is a
So
great
good.
documentary that I forget what platform it's on, but I think it's called Too Funny to Fail.
Yeah.
And it's about Dana Carvey's sketch show that he did in the mid to late 90s after SNL. And it has this murderers row of the funniest people on earth that were writers and actors on it. And it just went terribly wrong. But
Hmm.
it's a great documentary if you get a chance. Really great to watch.
all incredible, like the funniest people in the history, like people that we're all massive fans of now, except
Steve
one.
Steve
Uh,
Carell, Steve Colbert,
yeah.
Stephen Colbert.
Mhm.
Just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. You should check it out.
Yeah. I know he did do some movies in the 90s like that, like obviously he got like good press and good acclaim from doing Wayne's World, but I feel like
Hmm.
he did get a few movie vehicles that were kind of his movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I
th
don't think they really took off.
other than Master of Disguise, which came later,
Master,
of
of
course.
course.
He
Of
and
course.
the tragedy of that movie, spoiler, is that he truly was not turtly enough for the Turtle Club, and
I'm a turtle.
it's
I'm a turtle.
let's please edit that out. Just to keep the mood light.
Yes.
I don't want to
Yes.
follow up murder
No.
talk.
No.
And that show, and I'm not forcing a transition here, take it or leave it, please leave it. Is that Murderers Row is one of the reasons why or of like fame, like of the funniest people in the world and like characters in that show. That's something that my sports team and my movie have in common, and that's
Oh.
I'll
Wow.
we'll be
That's
right
very
back.
interesting.
You are listening. No, go ahead.
Yeah, the theme of the show today is what is a Philadelphia sports team that you absolutely love or is like most memorable for you? Um, let's see. I know that let's see, let's start with Chip for that.
Yeah.
All right. Um, I've never been. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so I've always been a Philadelphia sports fan, but I've never been a diehard sports fan. Like I don't get into all of the every player and all the stats and all that. But I was always casual fan. I wasn't a big athlete like Blake, but I I but one that really hit me was I was because I was in middle school, and that's when you're really sort of like, all right, I'm in middle
Hmm.
school now. All the guys are watching sports. I should get into this. So I think it came at a perfect time. But I went with and it's really not this specific season, but just this era of the 1990 Philadelphia Eagles.
Great
The
pick.
Philadelphia Eagles of 1990, the late 80s, early 90s, Buddy Ryan. I think it's the trifecta. It's the Buddy Ryan, Randall Cunningham, gangrene defense
Hmm.
uh, trifecta of the Philadelphia Eagles. It was it was just so cool to watch. First of all, Randall Cunningham was my favorite athlete. Just I mean, he was just an incredible quarterback. Could run, throw. He could do everything. And I still remember, I think it was 91, the first game of the season. It was a beautiful fall day. My family was out in the yard raking leaves, like this perfect autumn September day. And we were listening to, why am I forgetting his name? The Who does the
Meryl
Eagles?
Meryl
Meryl,
Reese?
Mer, Meryl Reese.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. Yes,
Yeah.
she's the Iron Lady.
Yes.
Uh, Meryl Reese was doing it. And because just Meryl Streep just doing a dead on Meryl Reese. But he uh he announced that Randall Cunningham broke his leg on the first game of the season, and it's just
Hmm.
like that was the year I was like, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're gonna win a Super Bowl, and I just remember it just being all over. So right before that, and then of course later that year is when Jerome Brown from the gangrene defense was killed in a car accident. But like just that high time of it's when I really because I always wanted to just see big plays because I didn't understand football. So I wanted to see the the 100-yard pass and the all this crazy stuff. And of course, we had I think it was who was it like Fred Barnett
Hmm.
and a couple, but like the wide receiver, there wasn't a long game. Even though Randall had a great arm, we didn't have I don't think the best receivers. We had Keith Byers, who I loved. He was like my second favorite, just a
Yeah.
tight end, big guy doing the short passes. I thought that was great. But it was when I really realized it's like, oh, you can win a game with defense and just being tough. And then it's like, oh, we're from Philly, we're tough. And that front four, I think it was Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, and I think
Hmm.
Mike Golick that year. And then you
Hmm.
had like Seth Joyner. uh, Eric Allen, Andre Waters, Wes Hopkins. Like, so it was just
Yeah.
this. And so, like, I don't even know how many points we scored, but we were just shutting everybody and we were so feared. And I thought that was so cool because we were so tough. And there was the body bag game against the Washington Redskins where we beat the Redskins at the vet. I think it was like 28-10 or something like that, 2014. And but more importantly, more notably, I guess I should say, the Eagles defense put nine players of Washington had to be carted off the field, including both of their quarterbacks. So both of their quarterbacks were knocked out of the game. They had to bring in like it was like a rookie running back who like played quarterback in college a little bit that had to finish the game because we literally knocked out both of their quarterbacks. And like that's how just feared they were. And like and of course Buddy Ryan was just a madman. And the Bounty Bowl was the year before that whole thing. And it was just such that's my favorite jersey, like the Kelly Green
Hmm.
jersey. And so that was just like that was just such a cool era. A little side note to that, my roommate in college grew up in like Wilmington, Delaware, and somehow he had some connection, something for a number of games. I think it was a few seasons when he was like 13, 14 years old. He was Buddy Ryan's like a sideline assistant. Like he was basically like the cord boy that would like back when
Oh,
it was like
no
the
way.
wired
Yeah. I
headphones
love
that
Cord Boys.
he would
Yeah.
hold the cord and make sure like it didn't get tangled for Buddy Ryan's earphones. And he said Buddy Ryan was like like the toughest guy. Everybody knows Buddy Ryan. He was like Buddy Ryan was the nicest guy. And so yeah. So the 1990 Philadelphia Eagles, love those guys.
That's a great one. Like Drew, how old are you, if I can ask?
Mm, I believe I'm 2 years younger than you, Blake.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know. So
33
you're
because
21. Um,
you were a junior at Stoga and I was a freshman.
yes. Oh, okay, cool. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. All right, that makes sense. So I think we might be in a similar era of Chip made a great point where in your memories that you make tend to be like in that middle school zone where you could like there's
Well,
players from
that's what they
middle
say
school.
about
Yeah.
they say the definitive the best cast, the funniest cast in SNL history is whoever was on the cast when you were in middle school. Like that's
Right.
what everybody like that's like the because that's what you remember. You like mine was like right around that time was, uh Phil Hartman and then, Sandler and Chris Farley and all those guys. Like that was my crew, because it was that time. So yeah.
And that's why I love Taron Killam so much.
I mean, who doesn't?
He's untouchable. So Mount Rushmore for sure. He's Roosevelt. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I have an affection for that team. Not that Chip is 75 years older than us. Like we're all like, we all like know who all these players are, but like I read a book once and then never again, and that book was called Bringing the Heat by Mark Bowden. Have you ever heard of that book? I think if you're it's so Mark Bowden, who I believe wrote Black Hawk Down
Okay.
also. Um
Hillbilly Elegy. Yeah, go ahead.
it was was he was a writer with I believe the Inquirer. Like I think he sold this idea to the Inquirer where he was embedded with that team, with the 92 team for an
Okay.
entire season. And I believe like so he like did he talked about the Jerome stuff, like bring it home for Jerome, and then goes into all of the personalities, every single one of the guys that you just mentioned, and almost all of them are complete psychos,
Yeah.
except Eric Allen was on those teams too, the cornerback,
Mhm.
who was like Southern California guy, incredibly handsome, did like TV as well as you can do it, and one of the best cornerbacks of all time. For he hasn't been inducted to the Hall of Fame for some weird reason, but
Crazy.
um he was amazing. So like that book was one of my favorite books I've like ever read, and it like goes into like Buddy's personality. I think actually it might have been Rich Kotite in 92 might have been the coach who
Yeah,
could
because
not
it
have.
was I I think it was like after I think it was after the '90 season. I think is when Buddy Ryan was fired. Yeah,
Yes, and it couldn't have been a more opposite turn in terms of personalities, where you have Buddy who could not have been more sure of himself, it seems like,
yeah,
and also just yeah, like completely positive that what he was doing was the right thing. And then you had this other guy who like was a very insecure man that
yeah,
everyone doubted and truly didn't know what he was doing. Like, it's that analogy. He was driving, like he was gifted a Lamborghini and he just drove it straight into a wall, like just
yeah, yeah.
couldn't. He drove it fast, like it did go fast into the wall, but it did ultimately hit a wall.
Right.
That's a really good pick. So many great players from that team. That's
Yeah.
a really, really good pick.
And like that's also when just like being at that stadium
Yeah.
in the early '90s was
Hmm.
just it was just hell on earth. I mean, it was great. I still remember now. This is a few years later. I think this was '92 maybe,
Hmm.
but and we always did well on Monday night games, which was always so much fun because Monday night football, national games, and we always seemed to do well. And I was at a Monday night game that we played the Cowboys
Hmm.
and we beat them. And I think it was right after the Cowboys won their first Super Bowl, of
Hmm.
that era. And then we came back Monday night and beat them like 31-10. And it was just wild. And my dad's friend had tickets up in the 700 level.
Oh,
So we
no
were in the
way.
700 level of that stadium. And it's just these animals. And you know how they do that Jaws thing, like between plays, like where the da da and they like zero in on one audience, one member, somebody in the crowd, and they
Yeah.
win like a prize. And it's always some like cute kid or some girl like down in the 200 level. They never go up to the 700 level to where
No.
the animals were. And there was a guy that was like 2 rows behind us the whole time, all the way up, was holding this sign the whole night that said, uh, ABC Monday Night Football, we love you, Dan Deerdorf, like the one announcer. It said ABC Monday Night Football, we love you, Dan Deerdorf. And this guy is just holding up the whole game. And finally, the Jaws cam comes up and it gets to him. And he's holding up this sign. It's ABC Monday Night Football. And Dan Deerdorf's he's
Hmm.
there. He's in the booth. ABC Monday Night Football, we love you, Dan Deerdorf. And the camera locks on him. It stops on him, and it's about to lock on him. He's about to win the prize, and he knows this. And he just flips the sign over, and it just says, "You cock." And the camera just
He
like
set a
pans away.
trap. He
Yeah,
said
he
it.
said a trap.
It's like the
And just
Velociraptors, or in like Jurassic Park, was like, my God, he set a trap for them. That's amazing.
yeah, and like this guy could have won a prize. He could have won whatever it
Mm-mm.
was, and he's like, nope. And then he flips it over, and the crowd went wild. It was so much
Oh,
fun.
that's so good. That's a
Yeah,
great one.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Drew, I can do. Do you want me to do mine real quick? I can do my team real quick, or did you want to? Did you have something to say too?
Um, so uh we can do yours, Blake. Now, I'm gonna have to set up another Zoom just real quick because I only have
Okay.
the 40 minute.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
So we'll just be able to jump back in and
Okay.
then that should be great.
Okay.
Yeah, Chip, to your points, I feel like Randall Cunningham is a very underrated quarterback that probably deserves a
Hmm.
lot more credit.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a
He was
great point.
amazing.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
was the first player like that. Like there was now we have like Jalen Hurts and like J Jackson and I can't my brain is no longer together. I know
Oh,
Michael
you
Vick,
had Michael Vick. I was just gonna say
yeah.
Michael Vick. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just all these great scrambling quarterbacks now. And that's like where the league is,
Yeah.
like even Josh Allen, if he played like in the early 90s, people are like, my God, this man is the most nimble, a fleet of foot
Yes.
quarterback
Yeah.
we've ever seen. So
Yeah.
yeah, he really was a trailblazer in that way.
Yeah.
You're right, Drew.
Um, let's see. So actually, this will be a great kind of preview or a great tease for part two. So Blake, what would your team be?
My team will be the 2008 Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay.
Well
That's right.
done. Well done.
And Blake, can I ask where you went to college? Because that would have been when you're in college.
Yes, very observant. It would have been so 2008. I was a sophomore at Emerson College in Boston, and
Grade school.
thank you so much. Thank you. So it's I paid sure did pay for that designation that you just gave it, and it's accredited. And yeah, I was up there and watched with my friends who were all from Philly, and then took a bus back the next day. It was right around Halloween, I believe. The parade might have been
The
on
parade was
Halloween.
on Halloween Day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and came back for because I had never seen a championship before, so and I didn't think I was